The wacky world of Multimedia J.
When I was little, this is exactly the kind of weather that would make the more motherly types in our lives say, "Turn off the video games and the TV and go outside and play." Such nice weather today. But what am I gonna do? Mess around with computer stuff indoors, of course. So, we're gonna get to enjoy some decent weather for the last time for quite some time. Because as you can tell from those overnight lows getting into the 60s after all of this, and then bam, 95, 69. The humidity's coming back. That's how I can tell whether I should have an air conditioner or a window fan during the summertime. The overnight lows, if they're too far above 60 degrees, that's when you know that you have some serious humidity going on, because the drier days in the summertime, it'll drop into the 50s at night, even if it's in the 80s during the day. Funny how weather works sometimes. So the Fractal Design Venturi is my first experiment with airflow specific fans for cases. There's two kinds of fans. There's pressure fans that are made to blow through stuff, like put them on a radiator or something like that, and it kind of tends to force more air through, but it isn't very good at pushing a lot of air to begin with. And then there's these airflow fans with the fins that are at more of an extreme angle that are made to basically push as much air as possible, just don't have them pushing through something because they're not good at pushing stuff through something. The Venturi is an interesting fan because it's Fractal Design going after the high-end fans, of course, with the rubber stuff, the rubber things on the edge and things along those lines, as well as the little ding marks there to cut down on turbulence, and this kind of stuff you see from folks like Fantex and Corsair and the infamous Noctua, which I still think is a giant pile of marketing. But since I liked the Fractal Design Silent series earlier, I figured I'd give these a shot because for allegedly similar RPMs with some noise dampening features built in, supposedly these things can do nearly double the airflow of the fans that I was previously running with. And I've actually been pleasantly surprised with the first two that I've already been installed in Tuxedo. This is going to be the easiest one to install because I'm going to try just using an exhaust fan for this as well. So a quick perusal of the 140mm fans on Newegg kind of reveals an interesting thing here. So we have this kind of like generic, not really designed for anything type fan, 1000 at 68.4 for CFMs. The Silent Series R2, I believe, is what I've been using up to this point, 1000-ish for 66 RPM, 18.5 decibel noise ratio. This is what I was currently outfitting Tuxedo with. When you see in the intro, when you see the fans in Tuxedo start spinning up, it's one of these. I kind of like the whole black and white design because it goes well with the whole Tuxedo type thing. So here we are now with the pressure version of the Venturis, which go up to 1500 RPMs and add about 10 CFMs or so, 66 to 78 versus the Silent series. So it's pressure stuff. And here's another one too as well. 1000 for 68.4, Silent series R3, 1000 for 56.1. Interesting how that works. The Blackout Edition just colors them black for people that don't like these kinds of color schemes and stuff like that. And now here is, nope, that's not it, $45. Oh, that's right. That's why there's a $45. Third parties. I really don't know why Newegg even bothers with third-party listings on here if the prices are never competitive, or is it to make buying from Newegg directly look cheap? So, all right, third parties are out, so you see the fans mostly around the $10 to $20 range. Hey, a Fractal Design case is probably showing up here because it comes with some of the Fractal Design fans. But here's what I wound up getting: the Venturi High Flow Series, airflow specific ones, around the 1200 RPM mark, up to 118.2 CFMs. And I've already checked on Fractal Design's website to verify the UOM, unit of measure, because you find a lot with Noctua, they have big numbers, but it's actually metric. And then when you do the math on converting the metric back to imperial units to compare to CFMs from other companies, you find out the Noctua fans are actually in the ballpark of their less expensive competition. So, marketing is marketing is marketing. I did a rant on that last year, and unfortunately a bunch of Noctua fanboys insta-disliked it, but heck with them. let's do this in the name of science and avoiding the marketing nonsense. Let's go to Venturi's and see what kind of airflow do we really get in Tuxedo. Now, I was inspired to experiment with these fans because of the progression of how fans have been and where fans have gone in the last couple of years, or in the last several years actually. Now, when I built the Silver Bullet, this is an 80mm fan. It's the only one that'll fit in the front of Tuxedo here. Notice the noise that this makes to push like some pitiful amount of air. Oh yeah. So that's what it was like back in Tuxedo, or back in the Silver Bullets days. Now, this might not make as much noise because this is the exhaust fan, but this is the last Silent series that I have. Now, it actually vibrates the case a little more because it doesn't have the rubber things on the edge. So you can hear a little bit of air noise. If I went around the back, you know, you could hear a little bit of air noise, but you'd also hear some motor noise as well, and that would resonate through the metal part of the case and cause what we like to call fan noise. But the Toshiba laptop, which I still have to do a video about at some point, introduced me to the idea of fast fans that make far more wind noise than motor noise. And that's exactly the case with these Venturis. You hear a lot more air being moved than hum from the motors. It's especially going to be the case when I turn up the graphics card one. So that's the CPU and the graphics card running at full speed, and there's a little bit of motor noise in there, but most of the noise you hear is from air being moved. So it sounds like a breeze or something like that. It doesn't go or anything like that and annoy you as much. So if you have to turn your fans up during the summertime, then this is the way to go. I mean, because you'll get mostly air noise. You won't get humming noise and vibration and things along those lines. So it really speaks to these high-end fans and what kind of designs they're rocking these days. Matter of fact, a lot of times, if I'm not doing anything too big on the computer, I can just turn everything down all the way. But if the processor fan starts spinning up because it's the smallest and loudest of the fans at 70mm, I can just turn this up a little, and the air that's being blown from the Venturi fan right behind it will actually cause the CPU fan to slow down. And listen to that. Barely any noise. You might be able to hear a little squeaky noise because the fan in the power supply has bearing issues. So I got to yank the power supply out of this thing and put some oil on that fan so it'll stop making the cricket noises when it spins. Or maybe replace the fan entirely if it's the right size. But yeah, that's it. I probably would be better off getting a new CPU cooler, like a third-party one, to replace that horrible stock cooler with the pre-applied thermal paste from 2010, which was applied via the spread method. But there we go. That's what running this thing in loud mode sounds like now. But if I want, I can always just put these at halfway, because the Venturis push double the air of their predecessors in the Silent series. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Alright, let's install the last Venturi and see what happens to the noise, because as you've seen with the forecast, this is one of the last good days that we'll actually be able to do something like this. Alright, let's bust out the over-the-shoulder cam and unbox this darn thing. Now, I don't know what happened here. I think maybe I overdid it on some of the cleaners and cleaning up some video game cartridges on this earlier. So let's cover that up. Drop stuff on the floor while we're at it. Very, very slippery box material. It's almost like, you know, they could make a mouse out of this. Alright, so we have here, there's the front, there's the back. A bunch of marketing materials and stuff like that. Low restriction airflow in mind, and the rubber things on the end are to try and cut down on vibration and stuff along those lines. And there's your 118.2 CFM, and if you want to play Noctua games with metric units, 200.8 cubic meters an hour. Alright, so 26.5 decibels, most of it coming from wind noise. So, we have here is some rubber things. These are alternative rubber ends for depending on certain cases and things along those lines. There's a bunch of extras in here. Mounting screws, of course, but I usually just reuse the old ones and save those for a mounting screw collection. A low noise adapter, which is basically a lazy man's fan controller. It basically just inserts a series resistor inside this little sleeving stuff right here. If you use these, you're a lazy ass and need to get a real fan controller. Or get a motherboard with a PWM controller, but you should never have to use those stupid little low noise adapters. You might as well just wire the resistor in yourself. And now the hardest part, Now the hardest part, because the fan has rubber edges, these things tend to not want to... Oh, that opens too. Hey, sneak preview of the fan blades. Alright, now because the fan unfortunately has rubber edges, it's a little bit difficult to get out of the box, and ooh, you might have to rip something, but alright. One of the harsh oversights, I'm sure this helps the returns a lot. I'm sure this helps the ability to return these things a lot. One of the harsh oversights of these rubbery fan things is that if these come pre-attached, you have a hard time getting the things out of the case. So here's the fan. Alright, so here's the actual fan blades with little dings. We flip it around the back. We can see the dings on the edges for, I don't know, turbulence or something like that. Or basically, there's a whole bunch of marketing material and stuff like that. But quite frankly, it spins. It pushes airflow. This is the non-PWM version. I think there might be a PWM out there, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just undo this here. And yeah, non-PWM, but this is non-PWM, but quite frankly, I mostly use PWM for CPU and stuff like that. The big issue I have with fan controllers is that the number one issue I have with fan controllers actually is that I want to be able to decide when I want noise. Now usually you have like a system trying to maintain a certain noise level at a certain temperature or something like that, but in the summertime when it's hot out and I'm running fans anyway so the room's not completely quiet, who cares if the computer's noisy so long as it's not louder than the fans that I'm running? I mean, bring on that extra airflow if it helps with the processor and stuff like that. So anyways, let's get this thing mounted up as an exhaust fan. Actually, why don't we do a little test, see if we can find something to hook this up with and power it without actually plugging it in just yet, just to see how it works and stuff. Alright, so here's the Silent Series version 2, the old fan that I was using. Fire it up. There's probably going to be more noise from the fans in the power supply than this thing. There's our airflow for you. Listen to that wind noise. Turn it around the other way, and let's see if we can get some vibration. Well, without breaking the camera. Touch the camera so the vibration goes through the speaker. That's what we're dealing with here. And again, with the airflow, if I can do this without dinging my finger on the blades, that's what we're rocking right here. Alright, let's turn this thing off. Hit the brakes on it. Swap it out with the Venturi. Here's where things are going to get interesting. Alright, there's the old one off to the side. Now, let's go Venturi style. And these rubber corners, of course. I'll hold it by the rubber corners to simulate what kind of noise we'd get, because these are supposed to dampen the vibrations through the corners. Go. One-handed. Hello. There you go. Significantly more wind noise, and we can't do the vibration thing very well. There we go. There's your vibration noise. Oops. There's your vibration noise. It's having a hard time keeping the camera pointed in the right direction. Spin this around the other way. There's what we're talking about for noise right there. But the airflow is significant. I mean, I can feel this way out here. So definitely a significant jump in airflow. However, I have seen the whole issue with the pressure versus airflow fan blade designs, because when I accidentally block bits and pieces on the other side, I can feel a lot of air coming back out the other way. That's the physics of all of this, and why not everything in terms of how fans are marketed is marketing. Noctua, though, might embellish a few things here and there, but that's the Fractal Venturi. Let's get this installed in Tuxedo and see what kind of noise we're dealing with here. There's the finished product. So the Venturi is good and ready to go, and it has basically, this is the hack job 140mm fan support in Tuxedo here. Basically, the case only has support for up to 120mm fans, so I use a fan funnel, which directionalizes the airflow a little bit more, so it really helps with the intakes to blow specifically over this, to blow through the processor and kind of augment the processor's fan and going through the heatsink, although I do think the heatsink compound has more to do with the problems with the heat on the processor than this terrible 70mm fan. And I also have a dedicated inlet for the graphics card, but I'm not really getting very good results because the fins on the heatsink are made for a fan that's coming in from this way, so this case is totally outdated. There's some people that want to know what this case is, and because they want one, If you want this case, you have no clue how to build a computer properly, because this case is not what you want. The most you could hope to do with this case is have like what I have. Keep the wires out of the way as best as possible because there's no built-in cable management via the back plate, and basically try to go in from the side and then out, or up and out through the old ATX standard power supply contributes to the cooling design. And of course there's rubber gaskets going everywhere too. There's more rubber in this setup. I have a rubber gasket for here for vibrations, and the ends of the fan is rubber as well. And I think that's what those extra rubber pieces were for people that wanted a rounded fan setup. They were more rounded on the edges for round fan installations. But my big concern with all this rubber is dry rot. What happens when the rubber gets a little old and it starts to harden a bit, or maybe crack or something like that? We're going to randomly have stuff start falling out, especially with those rubber anti-vibration screw replacements that are being used where you just pull them through. Not too sold on those. Anyways, let's put this back together because the cover's kind of loose and see how we're doing noise-wise. Are we getting more wind noise, or is there still going to be some vibration? I predict that there's still vibration. This still has old-fashioned fans, and this still has an old-fashioned fan, and the graphics card still has an old-fashioned fan too as well. That's not even a Maxwell EVGA either. I want to upgrade to a Maxwell. Maybe next time the hot new graphics cards come out and the Maxwell prices drop, I'll pick one of those up. But anyways, I gotta take out this power supply at some point because this fan right here is having bearing issues, making a cricket noise. I'm starting to hear it through the case, so we gotta get some oil on the bearing, or maybe see if that fan's replaceable, and modify this otherwise perfectly good PC power and cooling power supply. Actually, I might even downgrade to 600 watts, but that's another discussion entirely. We'll talk about that at some point later on. Anywho. Okay, we're all back together, and I've done a test boot to verify that no wires are getting caught in any of the blades, so I've had that happen a couple of times before. Comes with the turf when you have such a hack job setup like I do. So, let's see, I've also verified that even when these are turned all the way down, all the fans still spin, so there's still some airflow even when these are turned all the way down, so I'm not, in a sense, turning off the fans like for CPU, GPU, and exhaust. This one, however, is borderline useless. I've never seen this front fan at 80 millimeters really affect my temps all that much. Alright, let's fire this thing up and get this thing going here. All the lights come on like it's supposed to. No postcodes or anything. In the sunset years of Tuxedo, as I make my plans to transition to Monolith with or without a motherboard and guts upgrade. So here's what we're looking at for noise. So, CPU starts getting hot. Mostly fan noise. Turn this down because it's going to be doing a lot of stuff when it first starts up. You might actually hear it start spinning up. Now we turn this up just a little. You might not be able to hear it, but the pitch does drop. You can hear the CPU fan spin back down when you turn up the fan that's right over it. It's almost like an alternative CPU fan, but I still think the coolant does more for it than anything else. So this is quiet mode. Maybe when it's really cold out or something like that, we can run things like this. And full blast now sounds like this. Starting to get a little bit of motor noise, but the majority of the noise is wind noise instead. Which I really don't mind. I mean, yay, cool, it sounds like a breeze. Who cares? Turn the CPU, GPU down. Here's what we're talking about with the difference from just exhaust noise only with that fan we just replaced. Well, the CPU's spinning up because it's getting a little warm. This really makes me wonder, let's put these all at like 50%. This really makes me wonder though if maybe I'm splitting hairs with all this fan stuff, because even when this stuff is running full blast, let's see if core temp, yep, core temp is showing up. So we're idling now. Turn these all the way down. Let's go over to, pop goes the chair. Alright, so we have 29 and 35. Now, let's go back here, pop again, and turn this up. This chair's 10 years old, maybe it's time to get rid of it. So this is full blast with the 140mm Venturis. Way back over here, okay, I lose a degree. A degree on the processor. And just for the heck of it, let's crank up the 80mm. Now we're really loud. staying right where it is. So the only fan, now I'm going to turn off the exhaust as well as the GPU, and watch this not go anywhere. Still hanging around 30, high 20s to 30 degrees, depending on how much activity is on the processor. But this really calls into question these high-end fan sellers out there. Are they splitting hairs? Are they making money off of people wanting to split hairs? I mean, wow. You put in some fancy schmancy fan and you lose a degree from the processor temp. Really? Is that really worth it? Or should you just get a better cooler for your processor in the first place? Or a better processor that doesn't get as hot? It all just plays into the monolith dilemma, which I'll be getting back to as I continue playing around with this stuff. And there we go. Just leave that at that for now. It all just plays back into the monolith dilemma and why I've been so frustrated with just trying to find out what I want to build for PC hardware, if anything, in the near future. Till next time, this is Multimedia J, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.